Welcome to this entry in the series of videos on how do I use the application merge utilities introduced in Microsoft Dynamics NAV 2015. My name is Morten Jensen. I'm a program manager in the Dynamics NAV team, and this episode is about caption and translation files and how to use the utilities that we have introduced in this version. So at the end of this video, the intention is that you will have an overview of the commandlets you can use for handling captions and translation files. We'll show you how to export and how to import application languages for translation and after translation, and then how to validate that a language is fully translated. And then at the end I'll mention a few other utilities that comes in this package. So the demo goes like this. I have an application built upon a Spanish country version with English and Spanish texts in it. And I've completed that. Now I just want to translate it into another language. So in my example here, I'd like to translate it to Danish and show you how to do that with in mind that we have somebody else do the translation. So to do that, you use the development shell for PowerShell that we introduced in this version. And the way that looks is like this one. And it shows that there's a set of commandlets. Most of these are for merging application objects and metadata, and other how do I videos are covering that. There's also a set of functions which are wrappers around C-side to make it easier to use in a unscripting environment. Now, I prefer using the Windows PowerShell Integrated Script Environment, or ISE, instead, so I just launch that, typing ISE, and then I get the integrated environment, which has nice color coding, the ability to save scripts, and so forth. The only thing that it does not is to load the NAV specific module. And rather than try to use import module and type it in here, which I could, I'll just promote the sample scripts that is included on the 2015 distribution media along other sample scripts that we have for PowerShell. And one of those is called how to start import nav module, and it is here. And as you can see, it is an import module, and it is with a full path of where it is typically installed. You may want a need to change this. So if I press this button here, or F5, I'll run the script, and it gets loaded. And it's look very much like what you saw before, only we have this nice color coding and what have you. So I'll remove this since now it has been loaded. I will clear this so I don't have anything here. So my scenario goes, as I said, I have a Spanish solution, and I will open the File Explorer to see what I've been doing. So from my root, the demo directory, I have, well, not a full application. So for the purpose of this demo, I have just two text files. One is the representation of the 9611 table and the page that comes with it. And I will be working on these, and just a quick view here is that is this XML schema restriction, and this is just randomly chosen from my site, but you can see that it has Spanish as well as English texts in it. So if I go back, my first thing in order to translate this is to export the languages. So why would I do that? Well, one reason is I would like to have the source of this translation and also the destination of where to put the translation. So I go export NAV and have now nice type ahead here. So I select this one, the nav application object language export function. And of course, as always, you can say get help. And you might even have some detailed information, and if you do that, you get all the help you want, and good examples and explanation of what they do and what they don't. So that's always where you want to do this. You can also use the -online parameter, which will take you online for a more readable format if you like that. So export says I have source file. My source file is what I have down in this Spanish directory. So I go here and I take everything that is called something with text. I would be asked to tell what languages to export. So I'll take the English, and I'll take the English because then I can see what it is to be translated into. I'll take the Danish, even though I know that there's not a single Danish word in these. And then I need to put a destination in here. And the destination I'll pick here is just current directory. Now this is all I need in order to run the export command. So I press run button here. It takes a little while. Then it does nothing but return, which means good in PowerShell world. So I go back and I see what's in my current directory, my root directory. So what you can see here, I actually got 6 files. Out of the 2 files, I got 3 languages for each of those. If I open the Danish one, there is no texts. But that was actually not the intention for this, because I think I'll do better by just having everything in one file. So I'll go and change my destination and call it all.text. And I'll press F5 to run. I'll go back to the Explorer and I'll open that one. What you see here is this is Danish, this is English, and this is Spanish. So I have 5 texts, that is no texts. Then I will have 5 texts, which is in English and Spanish. These are 3, one for each for the part, or the page, sorry. So I close this again, or actually I'll say this concludes my exporting of my languages. So now I take this file and I send it to the company or the agency that can translate this into Danish in this case. So I happen to know a little Danish, so I will say this is schema code, this is easy, element is almost the same, ID is the same, value is værdi, and then something, what was the next one? XML schema rest, let's abbreviation. So this is now, I save this, think of this as coming now back from the vendor that translated this. So I'm now ready to import that into my solution so that I have a translation into Danish. And importing is just as simple as exporting was. So I will pick this one. In this case, my source would be the Spanish again, because this is where I come from. I don't need to put in the star text. I will import, I will limit myself to Danish this time, because the other 2 I know are there. And the destination, I will pick actually the language, which is the language file that I got back from translation, which is all.text. Maybe the agency had renamed it or something. And then the destination, I will put that into a directory called Dan. And then I'll just go down here and make a Dan directory. Now I have a directory. So now I'm ready to run it. So I mark it because I don't want to export it again. And I click Run Selection or F8. And that returns as well, no errors. So now I can go back here. I have my Dan directory. I open this. I have 2 objects here. And the first one is the table. And as you can tell, here's a translation. You can tell here's a translation. You can tell here's a translation. We are all good. We are basically ready to ship this. Now, you could ship this, and maybe you have, maybe we have, but we also introduced a commandlet in this family called test nav application object language, which will look into a source, in this case Danish, and it will look for the existence of all texts in a given language, and I'll go for the Danish one again, the ones I just entered, and then I will see how that comes out. So I can run this, mark this, press F8, and okay, this time it comes back in red, which in PowerShell is typically not so good. Well, in this case, it's actually acting the way it should be. It tests and it fails. It fails because, as you can see, one or more missing translations are identified. Now, your next question is likely to be, okay, which one was that and how do I fix it? Well, since this is the way PowerShell works, what we can do is we can add the path through parameter, which is a parameter that is on almost all the merge utility commandlets, and which tells the commandlet to produce rich objects in a collection and pass that as a result, which again in turn can be piped into something else. Now in this case I'd like to pipe it into what's referred to as the grid view, which is a graphical user interface. So if I do this, I'll get a warning, F8. In the back there's a warning still saying that it was one missing, and I will have explicitly one line in this grid view here says that of object type page with this ID, with this locale ID, there is this line. So I'm looking for the page for 9611 with this ID. So I'll go back here, and I can also go back here. And if I look into this one, like all texts, you know and saw how I added these, but actually I forgot this one, which is like the page with this ID in Danish. So this should have been an XML and something part, and I can take that one, I can save it, I can go back, I can re-import that one. I could also have just edited it. That fails, and that's because for my demo I already had that file. I can add the force parameter standard PowerShell, which means this is okay to overwrite the file, and then it succeeds. And then I can try again and see how does my test go. I'll just go without the grid view and press F8, and guess what? Now we succeed. So now we know that all the Danish translations that's supposed to be in these files are there, and I am good to ship my product. So this more or less tells you how to go from exporting everything and then later on translating it and importing it back, testing that it works, ready to be imported into Seaside, compiled, tested, and all the usual stuff. Before I conclude, I'll just mention 3 other commandlets without really running them as necessarily. One is remove. Remove is convenient when you want to take some of it, some languages out of a text file. It could be for comparison. Then you remove a given language. Another one is pair of split and join. Split can take several language files and split them into separate files, and join goes the other way around. You have separate language-specific files with language text in it that can join them into a single bigger text. All of these for your convenience in a way that you can see and get your stuff to the translator later on. So this basically concludes my presentation on the captions and language file tools part of the application merge utilities. I showed you how you can use this to export stuff to send for translation, and how to import it again, how to validate that you didn't miss any in the process, and also showed the commands that you can use for the removal, splitting, and joining. Thanks for listening in, and I hope I will be able to show other parts of the application merge utilities in other episodes of this series of How Do I videos. Thank you.